Hello everyone, how have you been? Thanks to KOICA Cambodia office for inviting me to share with all of you the research findings of my master thesis and some unforgettable living and studying experience in South Korea under KOICA Scholarship Program. Let me introduce you a little bit about myself. I am Daraseyha Thorn, Deputy Director of Department of Planning, Statistics and Summation of the Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation. I finished my bachelor's degree majoring in sociology, and I am one of the 2019 KOICA scholars majoring in public administration under the program of public management and public sector reform at Seoul National University. To complete my master's degree, I conducted a research on a topic, an analysis of policy on alternative care for children in Cambodia with reference to educational impact on residential care. In my thesis, I divided into 5 chapters, as you can see. For the research background of chapter 1, I wrote about the global perspectives of other researchers and scholars, focusing on what they see about education of children living in childcare, residential institutions or orphanages. For the research problem and the purposes of research, you can see what I figure here. You must know that Cambodia is a developing country because of poverty. Children are brought by their parents to keep in orphanages or other local childcare residential centers with other children. Without good management, violence and sexual harassment happen and can make children have mental and psychological problems. Without donors or sponsorship, some non-standard residential care centers get advantages from the children through labor exploitation by using children to sell products to earn money and make children don't have enough time to study. Discrimination between children in communities and children in orphanages still happen. So children who get discriminated lose their willingness and encouragement of going to school. Without parental care, how can orphans achieve their educational attainment? There are 3 purposes of this study. First, the current situation of children living in institutions and their educational accomplishment in Cambodia from 2015 to 2019. And second, perception on the importance and the factors that affect the education of children living in residential care institutions. Third, evaluation of child integration plan, which is the implementation of the policy on alternative care for children in 2006 according to the educational impact with the current situation of residential care. To fill these 3 objectives, I made 3 research questions accordingly. In the literature review, I used narrowed down strategy to write down the relevant and important theories, case studies and policy frameworks from global perspective to real situation in Cambodia. I divided into 6 main points. The study utilizes a phenomenological method of qualitative approach, and it is an exploratory research. This research used primary and secondary data to do qualitative analysis. Primary data was collected through in-depth interview with the 5 key informants. The secondary data that describe current situation, perspective, and number of children living in residential care institutions were collected through child inspection system and reports from the MOSWI. This research is not a broad study of child welfare system in Cambodia, just focus on any effect on the education of children in residential care. Data collection through in-depth interview was guided by semi-structured questions, and questions were further developed based on informants' responses. The interview was done through a calling via Facebook Messenger and Telegram. To analyze the qualitative data in this research, a model of input process and output structure was preferable to be used. You can see how it worked through this figure. Yeah. Chapter 4, Analysis and Discussion. For the secondary secondary data that I collected from child inspection system of the MOSFI from 2015 to 2019. I made them into tables, graphs, and figures, and I interpret them. Here are some of them. The first graph shows number of children in childcare institution in the last 5 years. Through this visual aid, the total number of children is decreasing gradually. It indicates the implementation of the main goal of the policy of alternative care for children is more successful. The basic purpose of the policy is to integrate children back to live in the community, and the facility is just the temporary and last resort. The graph shows the number of boys and girls living in the residential institution in the last 5 years. The number of the boys living in the residential institutions is higher than the number of the girls. This graph shows the number of childcare institutions in the last 5 years. Number of childcare facilities has been up and down within a gap of a similar number, and most of them located in Phnom Penh, the capital city. The figure shows the number of residential care institutions and children living in them by province in 2019. It indicates that Phnom Penh, the capital city, has a big number of childcare institutions with 1978 children. This graph explains about number of children in childcare institutions compared by ages and sex in 2019. This graph indicates the differences of graduation level of boys and girls living in childcare institution in 2019. After finishing secondary school, more children are integrated back to community, and some of them want to stop studying general education at school to learn vocational skills instead, so that they can earn money to support their lives faster. The rest of them want to finish grade 12, and small number of those children want to pursue bachelor's degree at university. This graph indicates the comparison between the number of boys and girls who have studied vocational skills living in childcare institutions in the last 5 years. The last graph indicates the number of boys and girls who have disabled and have HIV or AIDS in 2019. It tests that the number of the boys with disability living in childcare institutions exceed the number of the girls. With the input, process, and output structure, the analysis was conducted by comparing the different perspectives of primary data from the in-depth interview with 5 key informants about the child integration plan and the implementation of the main goal of the policy on alternative care for children in 2006. The policy implications related to alternative care for children with reference to educational impact on residential care is related to 5 factors, such as first, the lack of data in MOSFI and MOE system related to the education and children living in residential care institutions. Second, lack of technique. For instance, national childcare institutions do not practice well yet if compared to NGOs, and there are still big problems to deal with children with disabilities. Third, lack of human resources and budget. And fourth, a long-term burden. Some children with serious disabilities might not be able to study because they have serious problems with their mental ability. The government must take care of them until they pass away. And the last one, fifth, environment. Some children who are integrated back from institutions also into communities or with unpleasant environment caused by drug, alcohol, gambling, or remote areas far from school, etc., must be in high risk of educational failure. It can be predicted that sometimes children living in communities are bullied and harassed more than children living in institutions are. In the last chapter, conclusion, I answered the 3 research questions. For research question number 1, I found that the current situation of children living in residential care institutions become better now because the effectiveness of the implementation of the policy on alternative care for children and the minimum standards of alternative care for children issued and adopted by the MOSFI. However, the MOSFI does not have enough records of data that can be easy to measure the educational achievement of the children in both residential and community-based care. Some child care institutions still have poor conditions that cannot support children with enough materials for studies such as tablets, computers, cell phones, and Wi-Fi. To answer research question number 2, I write that with perspectives from all the informants, both formal and informal education for children living in institutions are very important to help improve an important part of child welfare in Cambodia. Depending on the in-depth interview, some children can be accessible to the education with full support from the government and NGOs, but some cannot. It depends on the fund of those institutions. Although residential care can provide a better education to children, but it also can make some negative effects on children's mentality because they might face the discrimination and lack of warmth from their parents if they are forced to stay in institution when they don't want to. To answer research question number 3, I summarize that the government nowadays must be very concerned with children who are integrated back to community and cannot make those children to continue their study until grade 12. I have made some recommendations to improve educational sector of children in residential care institutions and children who are already integrated back to communities with current situation in Cambodia, depending on the policy implication that I mentioned above. For Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation, more responsibilities to go and to improve. And for MOE's, Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, there are some concerns, and these two ministries need to work together. And the rest are the children recommendations are for the childcare institution run by the government and non-government, and the last one is for subnational and local authorities. Limitation and future consideration. This research was conducted through encountering many challenges because of COVID-19 pandemic. It was difficult to collect both primary and secondary data via the communication through social network system. The primary data collected was not so balanced and complete, so it caused difficulties in analyzing to have a good result. The in-depth interview was very difficult through online meeting because when the internet was slow, the voice was not so clear to be heard, and the voice recorder could not have detected the voice clearly too. The key persons to interview were very busy at the same time or not free at the same time, so that it depends how much more, it spend much more time to wait to interview them one by one. The research is limited to only situation in Cambodia. The concepts and theory are enough to comply with collected data in Cambodia, but the primary data received from the in-depth interview are not so good in some points because some respondents did not want to criticize the government when they are the government officials. The secondary data collected from the child inspection system in the MOSFI is limited too. So if the other researchers want to do the research on this kind of topic, it should be considered to do interview more with the children and their parents to compare with the idea from the government staff, NGO staff and social workers. Last but not least, I would like to show you the gallery of my unforgettable moment with my dearest classmates, teachers and professors in South Korea. You can feel how wonderful it is through seeing these pictures. With KOICA Scholarship Program, I spent 17 months in South Korea with a new big family of more than 15 nationalities from all around the world. We live and study together with the other Korean government officials. Thanks again to KOICA for this opportunity. Thank you so much for your paying attention. Bye bye. Good luck.